The cartilage was gone in my knee, and I needed help. But when you can't hear well and you can hardly walk.
I have rheumatoid arthritis. It's actually a systemic disease that attacks your internal organs. It attacks your tendons.
I was dealing with carpal tunnel syndrome. My hands would go numb. My fingers would go numb as I'm losing my ability to draw. The fact that somebody cared meant a whole lot.
Finally, after losing our home, Hero Initiative has been sending us monthly grocery cards. If it wasn't for those grocery cards, we would really have a hard time eating.
Hero Initiative is the only registered charity dedicated to helping comic book creators in medical and financial need.
I've been so intimately connected with so many artists and writers over the years, some of whom are in need of help right now, and it's just great that there's an organization like Hero that's there to help them.
People were just working for very small page rates. There were no royalties. There were no ancillary income provided for those who created the characters who have made millions since then.
Most of the comic creators that were working piecemeal. They were working without any sort of retirement plan.
Even today, so many of us freelancers, we're living paycheck to paycheck.
But what we do is we try to help during medical crises and financial crises.
I never knew about Hero Initiative until the time came when they appeared on the horizon to help me.
There is no other place for these people to turn.
I think it's a great organization. I mean, I think it's just great that they're even doing something like this.
It's been a godsend, just going down to see the doctor. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I can't say enough.
People have just heard no so many times. They've heard, no, I don't have any work for you. No, you can't be a week late on the rent. I need it now. They've heard, no, your style is too dated. You're not going to sell anymore. And finally, by the time that we talk to them, they're finally hearing a yes.
It is good when you realize somebody is going to at least catch some of your fall.
Without Hero Initiative, I don't know that I would be here today.
Hi, I'm Stan Lee, and I support the Hero Initiative because everyone deserves a golden age.
Okay, and we are back. Steve, I know you just messaged me. Can you still hear us?
Yeah. No, everything just stopped.
Okay.
I didn't see the intro. I'm sorry, I missed it.
You're fine. As long as you can hear us, we're good. If you need to back out and come back in, you can. Whatever you need to do.
No, I'm great.
Okay. All right. So obviously, as Chris mentioned, y'all, we have Steve, who is the founder and president of CBCS Comics with us. For those who don't know, a little history on him. He actually was the creator of Slab Comics. It was his baby, his idea to start protecting and preserving comics. He was working with CGC to develop that. He pushed the idea. There was a lot of pushback. Comic book people aren't going to want that, blah, blah, blah. And it took off like wildfire, right? But being with that company, he was not an owner. He wasn't a shareholder. So he had this great idea of Slab Comics and wasn't earning the money or the respect for it. He left and worked for Heritage Auctions, which, if y'all don't know, handles millions upon millions of dollars in high-end comic books. And Steve was one of their top people there. Even now, they call him, ask him to come back. But his passion was in the slabbing and the protecting of the comics. He will tell you when we talk here in a minute. He's a hobbyist. He's a comic book nerd. He loves comics. So he started CBCS, and they've only been around 5 years. CBCS has not been around that long. So, CGC has had a 15-year head start over CBCS. And we were talking before the show started. Steve even mentioned, they've had a hurricane one year that lasted a week, a hurricane that lasted next year that lasted 2 weeks. They had to move to Dallas, and now they're dealing with COVID. So obviously, all that going on, and they're still able to put out the great product and have the great things that they offer that we'll be talking about tonight. Don't forget, though, it is a question and answer session. So if you have questions, feel free to ask them. We will get to them. Steve, anything that you want to input before we start with questions there?
Well, I'd like to make some corrections, if you don't mind. I didn't have the idea to put books in plastic.
I'm sorry.
The Certified Collectibles group came to me, and they went to the top dealers and top collectors and said, who do you trust? Who can grade correctly? Who can detect restoration? Who can sell this? I guess my name was on the top of the list, and I turned them down at first. I thought, you can't put comics in plastic, just like everybody else. When they showed me how it worked in cards and coins and what it's done for their hobbies, and how it protects the collector and helps the sellers sell, I said, okay, but I want to do it with my ethics and pick my crew, because I didn't want it to be something that was just going to be a big grab for money from our hobby, because I care about it so much. And they agreed, so we did it. But it was not my idea.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I just, want to make sure people know, give credit where credit's due, right? But it wouldn't have worked without Mark Haspel, my second in command back then. He was fantastic. And yeah, like I said, like you said, sorry, I put my heart and soul into it and wasn't getting any ownership. And I was getting burnt out of grading. So that's when I decided to go to Heritage. And that was a fantastic experience. Like I said, I brought in millions and millions of dollars worth of artwork and comic books. And I even got another auction house to give their collection to us, because it would do better at Heritage. And it was $4.2 million. That was a real coup for me. That was Pedigree Comics. And then, of course, like you said, I got offered to start a business with my ex-partner on my own. And once again, run it hobby friendly and my way. And so I went and jumped in, hoping it could work, and it actually did. I'm very humbled by the response we get from a lot of people. It's been fantastic.
Very nice. Again, I do apologize for the mistakes, but I appreciate you correcting them for me. So
no, never a problem.
So obviously the big thing, the big announcement that was coming up at Fan Expo was going to be the new slabs, the new cases, which I've actually seen. I've had my hands on them. They are beautiful. I cannot put into words how great they look. They're to me, they're even clearer than the current ones. They just feel better. Do we have a status update on those slabs?
Yes. We announced that it was going to be the first of this month, but because of excuse me, because of the COVID, our printer was shut down with the new labels. So it looks like the 1st of June.
Okay, we're a couple of weeks away.
Right.
Oh yeah, we're really excited.
Yeah.
And for those that aren't aware, so with the new slab, the label actually wraps all the way over. So it's a one-piece label that goes front, back, and you even get it across the top, so it all lines up nice and pretty. And you have the info where you need it. So when you go and stick it in your BCW graded boxes, you have all that info and everything. We have a couple questions, so let's hit those up. Albert says, I know things aren't back to normal and things are going slower than normal. What kind of turnaround times should be expected right now?
Oh, actually, we're back to normal. For
the
most part.
Yeah,
and books are taking approximately 5 weeks for the slower tiers, maybe 6 if there's a holdup. VSPs, which we'll talk about later, I'm sure take an extra 10 days. But we're working nonstop. I'm working 6 to 7 days a week. Work nights. I just make sure I take enough time not to burn out.
Right.
Because the grading is that important. The grading is the most important part. The case is secondary. Everything else is secondary. The grading has to be consistent and has to be what the hobby expects.
Right. And that's the key word, I think, that when it comes to any type of grading is consistent, right? So if I take a book and submit it and it's a 9.8 and for whatever reason crack that, it should still come back around in that range. It shouldn't come back at 8.0 unless I mutilated it when I cracked it or something.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, the way I usually explain it is that if you're a decent grader, and most people who submit books, especially for selling, are pretty good graders. We've all learned through the Overstreet Grading Guide and through the marketplace what the marketplace will accept and what they won't accept. Then if you send in a book you think is an 8.0, unless you missed something like a rusted staple at centerfold or something like that, you should, if you think it's an 8.0, it should come back 7.5, 8, or 8.5, right? It should be in the strike zone.
Right, exactly. Chris is asking any news on the magazine cases. So for those that are watching that aren't aware, CBCS currently does not have magazine-sized grading. They are going to be working on that enough to where it will even hold like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 1, 2, 3, and 4, the originals. They just got to make sure the wells are deep enough to do that. I know that at this time they're not committing to a date, but they are working on it. Do you want to add anything to that, Steve?
Well, we keep talking about it. The tooling costs are very expensive, and the amount of magazines you get are going to be very small compared to the amount of comics. So right now we have some programs that we'd like to start that cost money. We'd rather spend the money on making the comic book grading service better. And so it'd probably be about a year before magazines are out there. It might be sooner, depending on how many meetings we have and who decides to push stuff forward. But I really don't want to commit to a time frame because I don't want to lie to anybody.
And it's better to say a far out date and then beat that date than to give a date and not hit it. So
right.
Well, I was going to bring it up, but Brad just said, let's talk about changing the red labels to a different color. So before we get to that part, let's talk about what exactly is a red label and how that differentiates you from the other grading companies out there.
Okay, well, it's called the Verified Signature Program. These are for signatures that are not witnessed. And there's an example right there. It's signed by Bob Kane. It's on the back cover. And it's personalized. But what we do is we've teamed up with BAS, who are the top really in signature certification in rock and roll, comics, sports, name it. And what they do is they have their experts look at it and decide if it's real, if it's fake, or if it's unverifiable. Stan Lee books from the last couple of years of his life, they were pushing him way too hard. You can't tell if it's a real Stan Lee signature or not. And he was old, and he loved dealing with the fans. I can't tell you enough about Stan. He's helped the Hero Initiative so much and wonderful to work with. As a hobbyist and a fanboy, spending time with Stan was just unbelievable for me. But his signature would change. And if somebody like coughs in the middle of a signature, it'll change. Mm-hmm. And so there might be some legitimate Stan Lee signatures out there that we just can't verify because of it. At the same time, there's so many fakes. I mean, back in the day, Fantasia was writing Jack Kirby and Stan Lee on the first page, stamping it file copy, trimming the books and selling them to unsuspecting collectors because there was no certification back then. We see those books hit us all the time. And it's usually 1960s Marvels.
Yeah. So the process with the red label is a beautiful thing that you can get done. I was actually talking to Steve about it. I have a Jim Lee book that was signed back in the 90s whenever Image was first starting up. There was no slabbing. There was no witnesses or signatures or any yellow labels or anything like that. I can still take that book now and go and get it verified through the red label program, the verified signature program, and protect that book within the cases, and it'll be verified that that's Jim Lee's signature, assuming that they verify that, obviously. So
right.
But the question that led us up to that was, let's talk about changing the red labels to a different color.
Oh, sure. Sorry about that.
No, you're fine.
See, I like the red labels. But again, that's me. I think that it makes it pops off that case for some reason. I like that but that's my opinion. So.
Yeah, the problem is that we're hearing from certain people that red means stop.
Okay.
And we didn't have a lot of choices to go with at the beginning, right? We have the blue and we had the yellow.
Mm-hmm.
People hate the green label that our competition has. And the purple label, of course, is, people are calling it PLOD, P-L-O-D, purple label of death. We didn't want that. So we didn't have a lot of colors to go by, so we went with red. But we get a lot of feedback that people want it to go to yellow. So we've been actually having heavy discussions this past week about moving red to yellow, with, of course, making sure there's a distinction between witnessed and verified. So hopefully that'll come to fruition fairly soon.
All right. So there you go, Brad. It's in discussion to change the red label. It hasn't been confirmed yet, but it is in discussion to happen.
So right now, real quick, I know people that are joining us may not know a lot about the grading process and and I know Mike has got a great question we'll get to in just a minute, or Cletus here. So let's talk about the colors of the labels just so we can differentiate what they are real quick. So you have your yellow label, which is a witnessed signature. So if you're ever in the store or anything, you hear somebody talk about a yellow label signature, that is a verified signature that was witnessed by a CBCS facilitator.
Right, that's an authorized signature as opposed to a verified.
Okay.
Verified is through BAS.
Okay. And then your red is what we were talking about, an unwitnessed, correct? Your unwitnessed signature, but that is verified.
Right.
Okay. And then what would you're talking about your green label and then the other color label?
Well, we don't have a green label.
You don't have a green
qualified grades. We don't believe in them.
Okay.
Grade. It shouldn't say this is a 9.8, but missing the back cover, right? Which is an exaggeration, of course. But we just grade the book that's in front of us and give it the grade. The one thing we do is that once in a while you'll get a book that looks fantastic in the holder but has problems. Maybe it's 3-inch tear on the third page, or there's staining that you can't see. We put a check mark next to the grade, which means check the grader's notes. This looks better than the given grade. And since our grader's notes are free, there's no reason not to check them before buying that book. We also have on the back of the label a QR code. So if you're at a convention, you could put your phone up to it and use click on the QR. And sorry, my phone rang. I forgot to shut it off.
No, you're fine.
My phone never stops. But you could put the QR code and get the grader's notes at a convention, at a store, anywhere. You don't have to be at your computer typing in a number.
And that is something CBCS offers that the other companies don't, is the free grader's notes.
Right.
So,
well, I mean, think about it. If I always say, if you went to a mechanic and he said, okay, it's $1,000, I fixed your car. And you say, what did I do to it? And he said, well, give me another $100 and I'll tell you. Or give me $50 and I'll tell you. Whatever.
Here's the details of why I had to do that repair work. So.
Right. I mean, I think that people should be able to know how we came to that grade.
Right.
Yeah.
So the three colors of CBCS are the blue label, the yellow label, and the red label.
Right, and the blue label could be restored or unrestored, but we make sure that there's a big restored, big word says restored above the grade, and all the information on the label about the restoration says restoration includes, and we put everything down. Once again, people didn't like the purple label, so people have to actually educate themselves, which is really important in this hobby. We spoke about this before the show, how I think that certification has not helped people learn how to grade because they just look at a book in a holder. There's plenty of people who do know how to grade and use the grading guide, and we posted grading standards on our website, so this way you can have an idea of what to expect when you submit a book. But some people just buy the label and they don't buy the book.
I was putting up, I don't know if those that are watching can see, but up there in the top left-hand corner on this one, it says restored up there.
Yep.
Right above the 9.8.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So go up here to Cletus's question real quick, Mike,
All right.
because I like this question since we're talking about the grading process right now. Oh, the one after that.
Oh, sorry.
There you go. So how much time is spent on the average book to be graded? When one of your graders actually gets the book in hand, about an average time you would say for one book?
Well, it really depends on the book. If I'm doing a bunch of stuff that just came off the press and was sent to us, let's say by one of our marketing partners, Aftershock, let's say, it's pretty easy to pick the 9/8 out pretty quickly. At the same time, if I get an Action 1 in front of me, my first thought is, what's been screwed up on this book? Who touched it? Is there color touch? Is there any kind of even minute tear seal or any kind of reinforcement? There's very sneaky stuff. I've spent my whole life learning this. And same thing with my second in command, Wes Steffen. He's a fantastic restoration detector, and as well as a pedigree specialist. And sometimes we can take as long as 15 minutes on that book. If we think something feels off, I won't let it go out the door until I'm sure that it's that I've found the restoration or that there is none. Back in the day, with our competition, there was one book that just bothered me. It was a high-dollar book. It was a one-day book. We held it for about 2 weeks. The guy called up, said, "You're taking too long." I said, "Something's just not right about this book." So I would put it away every night and go back and look at it in the morning, and it was really sneaky work, and finally figured out what it was. But he was getting a little angry, and I said, "Look, I'll send it back to you raw because I don't feel good enough putting this in the holder because it's going to go on to somebody else." And he said, "No, take your time." He was very nice about it. And like I said, we found the restoration, and nobody was going to get burned by buying that book.
That just comes with experience of sitting there and looking at it and feeling it and knowing it. So,
yeah, but it takes a lot of experience.
yeah, not something I can walk in off the street and do. That's for sure.
No, I mean, if it's like, amateur color touch and you know that book, it's pretty easy.
Right. You were talking about the grading and the info. If you do go to the CBCS website, they actually have this here, and it talks about the grades and kind of what that means and what they're looking for and what gets that grade and everything. So that is available to view on their website if that's something y'all are interested in looking at. So just wanted
right. I really believe that people should be educated.
Yep.
And the more information we give them, the better. Back when I was working for the competition, it was like the secret sauce, and we didn't want to give anything out. When I started CBCS, I disagreed with that. I want to help the community. I don't want to hinder them.
And then I was going to go back and touch on this one just because I kind of know your answer on this one. Chris had mentioned, please no character labels like CGC's new labels. I know your feeling is you don't want to distract from the book that's in the case, so you want to keep that label as minimal as possible. So at this time, you're not looking to do that in any way, shape, or form for CBCS.
Right. I mean, if we had enough people asking for it, I'd probably have to go along with it because we're not just in the hobby, we're a business.
Right.
But people really seem to appreciate when I explain that the book should be the center of attention. To me, the grade is already too big and takes away from it.
Well, and something that to kind of lead in that, and I want to get back to a question Cletus asked, but you led it into, I want to talk about the art label. So this is something that y'all offer. I actually have one myself currently, and the glare probably on that. But what's great about this is, you know, you have artists that do these commissions and they've got to press down on these books. They've got to draw on these books. And it's about the art. It's not about, I mean, it's a blank, right? I mean, so it's about showing off that art. So people that are obsessed with the 9.8, if you don't get the 9.8, you have the option to turn it in and make it into an art piece. And it doesn't have to be comic book size as long as it fits within that. So it can be smaller, you know, a 3x3 card or something like that. Or I know people get the little cards with different characters on it. Those can be slabbed and as art. Or if you have, you know, the back of a comic book, a bag and board, and somebody signed something, you can slab that as art. And that's something that you guys offer that I think is pretty cool.
Yeah, I really like the art label. You explained it pretty well. I was just a big fan of saying, you know, Jim Steranko did this. It's a great piece of art. Why should somebody care if it's not a 9.8? You got it because it was Jim Steranko's art, which is fantastic.
You know, that's great, and it's funny you actually brought that up because literally 30 minutes before we got on here, I was just scrolling through Facebook, and Ryan Kincaid actually went on. Did you see that, Ryan?
Yes,
he actually went on a rant. Somebody mentioned to him about he did a commission, and I guess the person asked Ryan Kincaid, well, will it grade as a 9.8? And he just went on a rant about, it's not about a grade. I'm giving you, I'm giving you a piece of artwork.
Ryan's point was, look, you're going to pay $200 for this artwork, no matter what the grade is, whether you grade it or not grade it or don't grade it or whatever you're going to do with it. My commission price for this piece that I'm doing is $200. Now, if you choose to grade it, then that's, you know, 40, 50, I think he said something like that, which that's higher than what it is. But
yeah, much higher.
Yeah. So you're at $250. It doesn't matter what that grade comes out at that point, whether it's a 9.8 or a 1.0, you're $250 in because it ain't going to change what the value of that book is, no matter what that grade is. And so Anna Zhao actually jumped on and said, graded as art. So,
and you know, and there's a couple of artists on here now. William Russell's on here. I saw Matt Campbell on here. They're artists as well.
Cool.
They probably feel the same.
So the one question Cletus had that we've kind of been glossing over, but I'll get back to it now. What do you feel or believe are some of the key elements to close the gap from the head start that CGC had over you guys now only 5 years in the industry?
Well, one of the things that there's a few things that we do. I think our grading is very consistent, which is the most important thing. I think we're hobby friendly, which is really important. You need to treat the guy or the girl who sends in one book just like you would treat somebody who sends in 1,000 when it comes to grading. I think it's so important. You can't pick and choose which people get preferred treatment. It doesn't work for our hobby. Might be good for business, but it's not good for the hobby. And I think in the long run, it'll be good for our business to make sure that the hobby is healthy. Where we have certain things in place, like with our grade screening, you don't have to send in a minimum of 30 books or 25, whatever it is that our competition has, and pick one grade and say these have to be 9.8s or better. You can actually send in one book or 1,000 and pick different grades on each book. So this way you're not pigeonholed. People love that. Once again, our case, I think, is much better. It's crystal clear, no Newton rings, which people hate.
A lot.
We don't have to use microchamber paper inside the book, so it doesn't have to be changed out every 8 to 9 years. We've made quite a bit of headway with the collecting community. There's, more of our books are showing up on eBay and auctions, especially largest comic seller on the web, mycomicshop.com,
which is in Arlington.
uses us exclusively for their books. Buddy Saunders is one of the real first in fandom who owns mycomicshop.com, and he's just a wealth of knowledge. We had him at the CBCS Expo talking to the people who came, and everybody enjoyed him. He's just a wonderful human being, and he just loves the comics. So having a great relationship with mycomicshop.com is fantastic because we're being shown all over the world. I'm sure there's other things I'm leaving out. We have so many programs. I mean, we have a slab-only program, right? If you just want to have a book in a slab without a grade, it's cheaper. People just put it in a holder so it's protected. We have the raw grade program, which stores really like to use, which is in a sealed, tamper-evident Mylar. It's great. Yes, you're showing it for treasuries or comics or magazines. It's a lot cheaper option. Some collectors even use it. They just want to kind of have an idea of what their grading is like. There's a lot of programs that we're doing. Once again, we just launched the registry, which is really going to help quite a bit for buyers and sellers. And after that, we'll be going with collector sets, so people can compete with each other with different sets and have fun. The other thing that sets us apart is myself, Daryl Hayden, other people come on our forums. I actually interact every day. Well, I shouldn't say every day. Sundays, sometimes I take off and spend with Pam so she doesn't divorce me. But
yeah, you made her move to Texas, so.
Yeah, that was tough in the first place. But I interact with everybody. I get instant messages from people there that either I can answer or I pass it along to the people who can answer for them. I think staying in touch with the hobby is very important. We do a lot of smaller shows so we can meet the fans. We have great relationships with a lot of artists. And we want the artists to be, very, very happy at the end of the day.
Chris asked, any news on when Dallas office we open back up for drop-offs and pickups? Chris, tomorrow, and Steve, you'll have to give me the time because I don't remember it correctly. It's either 10 to 11 or 11 to 12.
10 a.m. to 12 p.m.
Okay, so tomorrow.
And so we're open right now. You have to wear a mask, and you have to make an appointment. But we will be, probably opening up more and more as things calm down. But right now, it's very important that we keep each other healthy. Maybe nobody in the office gets it, but we don't, or somebody in the office might have it. Who knows, right? But we don't want to give it to our clients. And we sure don't want our clients giving it to us.
Not to mention, if someone in the office does test positive, that means everyone in the office has to go into quarantine until they can prove that they're not positive. So.
Absolutely. And we don't really want to shut that business down again.
Right.
Exactly. Let's see. I did see, William Russell was asking, are you guys able to slab 11 by 17 art yet?
No, that'll come with the magazine holder.
Okay.
Okay.
I wish it would come faster, but everything takes time. And they say patience is a virtue, but it's also a pain in the butt.
That it is. That it is. One thing at a time. We have to get the new comic regular slabs going, and then we can look at the magazines. Brad asked, you mentioned the paper that CGC has to put in. How does that work, not using the paper inside the book?
Well, we use PETG, which is used by the Smithsonian. It actually lets the book breathe. The reason back in the day we started with the microchamber was that it was Borock that was being used and it didn't breathe. So the contaminants were staying inside the well that houses the comic inside the holder. And it would, the off-gassing would break down the comic. We used to have, or should say they used to have on the back of the label, please change the slab every 7 to 9 years, I think it was, because that was the research we did. For some reason, they took it off. I don't know why. That's a question when you're dealing with them.
Right.
But we don't need it. It's also, it's like a sponge. If it has too much contaminant in it, it will fill up.
The CBCS cases are able to breathe. That when he's talking.
Well,
about
actually,
breathing.
it's going to change, so you're not going to be able to have the openable.
Right, you have the port vents at the bottom on the new slab.
Right, and it's still going to breathe.
Right.
But the microchamber was a great idea in '99, but we're no longer in 1999.
No, it's 2020. We have murder hornets now. So let's see. William Russell says, would be awesome if artists could have their logo or name added to slab labels. So like artist specific labels of some kind, it sounds like he's saying.
Well, like I said, that's something that if we get enough requests for it, we might do.
Right.
We have done on the label, from the personal file copy of this artist, and from the collection of this artist. People love that. Actually, we just got in books, and we did from personal collection of Jerry Garcia, who passed away in '95. But Bonham's just auctioned off his books, which is a shame. I really tried to get the collection. I'm a big Grateful Dead fan. I tried to get the collection from his wife in '96, and she just thought they were worth a fortune. And they were all like 2.0s. Jerry read them to death. But it's really cool. Everybody who has them now that submitted them, it says from the personal collection of Jerry Garcia.
And so speaking of that, and you had mentioned it earlier, and I had told you I was going to ask about it. Explain to me, because I like I told you, I know nothing. When you say like you have West, who is a pedigree specialist, what does that mean? What does pedigree mean?
Well, pedigrees there's certain criteria that they have to meet. They have to be original owner collection, bought off the newsstand, or I'm showing my age, or straight from the comic stores. There should be a fairly large amount, should have the keys, things like that. There's smaller collections like the Denver, which only had 50 pieces, but they were all number ones from the 40s, and some of the best examples of that comic. They have to be high grade, or at least most of them. So it differs from a collection. There's the best example, and my favorite two pedigrees out there are the Edgar Church Mile High collection and the Tom Riley San Francisco collections. If you look at these books, they look like they were printed yesterday. The gloss is still wet. I've owned many of them. I've owned actually the Flash 1 from the Edgar Church collection. And I've owned the More Fun 52, the first Spectre from the Edgar Church collection. These are unbelievable books. They, like I said, they look like the ink is still wet. and the pages are white. I mean, blazing white. The way they were stored and kept. The first Silver Age pedigree was found by Jerry Wiest, a dear friend of mine who passed away. He opened with Chuck Woolley the first real comic store, Million Year Picnic, and then, of course, started the first Sotheby's auctions in the 90s. He was fantastic, and he found the White Mountain collection, and these were fantastic examples of Silver Age books. So there was the first Silver Age pedigree then. But mostly the pedigrees were kept to 1940s and 1950s. There's the Larson collection. There's so many. It was incredible, by the way, sorry to go off on a tangent, but the Larson collection was some kid who wrote his name Larson on the books. John Burke, a comic book collector historian, great guy, found out where he lived, and he was still alive. And we had a big dinner in San Diego where we invited him and his family. And this old gentleman could not believe people wanted to meet him just because of his comic collection as a kid that he forgot about. It was, as a fanboy, it was just an amazing experience for me and my friends. I think 55 people showed up for the dinner, including, major players in the hobby, sellers and collectors, and even some novices showed up to learn about it. It was a real great moment in my life in comics. But yeah, so that's the difference between a pedigree and a collection.
Okay. Yeah, I was just curious about that because I know you'd mentioned that. So I'm sorry, Chris, go ahead.
No, I'm glad you talked about that. I'm going to jump on. I saw Mike pop up here with a question, but I'm and a few others real quick. And I've been wanting to ask this. I wrote this one down earlier. So being that you were at Heritage and you're at the competitor and you've seen millions of books come through and been on your desk that you've personally graded. And we were talking before we went live on the show, and it was funny how we were talking about sports and stuff, and you're like, no, I'm a comic guy. I'm a comic geek. That's what I love. So right. knowing that you are as well a collector as well, what is the most sentimental book to you that you own, or your most memorable book that you can look at and go, I cannot believe I have that book?
That's in the past. What I did in '99 was I sold all my books so everybody would know I was impartial. I didn't want people saying Steve Borock owns The Flash 1 Mile High.
Okay.
My copy might be better, but he's not going to give it a better grade. I still read comics like crazy. I can't get enough of them. But I have the greatest collection in the world. It comes across my desk every day.
Yeah.
And working with either our competition or Heritage or right now at CBCS. I post every day books that hit my grading desk. I don't post them encapsulated. I just love showing them off. There's also some pictures of a band I went to see. But I love live music.
I'm allowed to do that. So.
But on Instagram, I post every day or try to. Same thing on our forums. I have a thread, cool books that hit my grading desk. But I collect original comic art. But mostly, believe it or not, Tim Truman, who has been around for a long time. If you remember Eclipse Comics and everything, fantastic artist. He does something for the Grateful Dead Almanac. It used to be a newspaper that went all over the world. Now it's, of course, digital. And I collect the Grateful Dead art that he does. He drew my daughter into one, which was fantastic. He didn't tell me. And I collect memorabilia from our hobby. I have Marvel value stamp books. I have the blacklight puzzles still sealed from the 70s. Make Mine Marvel button that I still had from when I was a kid. I love the memorabilia and the history of our hobby. So I get to collect different stuff now. When it comes to reading, I've kind of drifted off from DC and Marvel. I like JLA Dark quite a bit. I think the storylines have gotten a lot of very convoluted at times. It's hard to jump in. So I'm reading a lot more independence right now, but I can't go without reading comic books. I just can't. And I love looking at other people's books at conventions. People come up to me and show me a book, and they're very excited that I'm excited to see it.
I can say that when you say that, I know it to be true because the first time I ever walked into CBCS, I needed someone to come out and help me. And you came out, and at the time I had no idea who you were, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you came out to help me, and you're just checking out the books. And I think I had some Sam De La Rosa signed books, and you were like, "Oh, that's cool." And you were looking at it, and you were genuinely like happy to see these books.
Sure.
Wow, cool. All right. And then I found out who you were, and I was like, "Oh, okay."
That's funny. I mean, I'm just another hobbyist, man.
Yeah.
I just have a great gig.
And Daryl's in with us. He's just wanting you to know that Steve is awesome. I don't know how much you paid him to say that, but he did say it. So
actually, I didn't pay him, but now I think I owe him money.
Yeah. For those who don't know,
Daryl is fantastic. He handles a lot of customer service stuff, a lot of conventions. We met, became fast friends. He's once again a huge love for the hobby, which is so important to me. Him and his wife are just fantastic people. I can't say enough about them.
Can't meet two kinder people. I mean, they're
it's
amazing.
true.
And I know Daryl was a big part of y'all getting y'all's numbers down as far as the turnaround times and everything. He worked on that for quite a bit. And promotion to a different position. So congratulations to him. So
absolutely.
So did I miss any questions, Chris?
Yeah, I think there's a couple more real quick. But yeah, you're talking about Daryl and his wife Kendra, that, and how nice they are. All you guys are huge supporters of the local comic shops, which we appreciate. And you were talking about how you guys like to do some of the smaller shows. It doesn't get any smaller than what we put on in Watauga, right? I mean, we put on a little tiny one-day show, and you guys actually showed up and came out there and helped promote the show. You guys set up a booth, and I think y'all took in 100 books that day. When we were like, you guys are going to be there taking in books for grading. And it was a Saturday afternoon, and you had a couple employees that volunteered to show up to come out and just help promote the show and promote your company too. And I thought that was the coolest thing that you guys did that to help us out.
Sure. I mean, we should help promote each other. It's community.
I agree.
And I don't believe that if it doesn't cost a lot of money, like doing that show, we can meet new people. It's going to help our business, but it's going to help the hobby in general. It's going to help that show grow. And we want the shows to grow, not too big like New York and San Diego. I dread doing it.
New York is a blast. I enjoy New York.
Oh, to me, it's just so much work and so much running around. And I love going back to New York because that's where I grew up, and my best friends are there that I've known some of them since kindergarten. But I'll tell you, after 6 days, I guess, of New York, I'm burnt out.
Oh, yeah.
And I love going to look at the art and talking to the artists and writers and fans, everything, but it takes a lot out of me. And it's a lot of walking. I think somebody said that, if you're going back and forth 5 times in San Diego or something like that, it's like 10 miles a day. I'm paraphrasing, so I'm sure I'm getting it wrong, but and I'm wearing dress shoes, and it's not easy.
The problem with San Diego is it's so spread out. So I found it was easier to just go outside, walk down where I needed to, and then cut back in than try to walk the floor. So
sure, but it's still a lot of walking.
Yeah, it's still a lot of walking. Sure, I had blisters after that one. So
yeah, and San Diego used to be one of my favorite shows until it got so big.
Right.
When it was at the Hotel Cortez and then later at Convention Center. But now it's, I feel it's less comic friendly and more media friendly.
There it is. More celebrity status.
It's all about Hollywood now.
So. Yeah. And so I'd rather go to your show, meet people who are so excited about the comics and talking comics, and I get to actually spend time with them than having to spend 2 minutes with somebody at New York so I can see 1,000 people.
Right.
And I love looking at books for people. They bring them to our table, and I help them decide if it's worth certifying or not. We don't just take the books in sometimes. We just say, you know, look, it's not worth the cost of certification. I can get you a better copy for the same price. I don't want people to waste money. I like making money. I don't like taking it. There's a big difference.
I just want to point out this book. That's obviously a fabricated picture because 9.9s don't exist. I keep submitting one, so.
No, they're like unicorns. They're hard to get.
Yes, they are. So, Chris, I love what he said, and he's absolutely right. He said, I love how you love this hobby just as much, if not more, than your customers. Unfortunately, that's not seen a lot these days. And he's spot on with that. Like
He
you
is.
just said, you'll turn away
Thank you,
business
Chris.
to take care of
I
the
really
customer.
appreciate that. It means a lot.
So, Chris, did you have another question?
You know what? Yeah, let me scroll up. I thought maybe we missed something. Let me look. No,
Steve.
No, we're good. We're all caught up. My bad.
No, you're fine. We started off the intro video talking about the intro video that we did this time around was a little bit different than normal, and I played the Heroes Initiative video. You want to talk a little bit about Heroes Initiative and your involvement with that and everything?
I always want to talk about the Hero Initiative.
I know you do.
It is such a wonderful, wonderful charity. Jim McLaughlin, the president, cares so much about our hobby. One of the nice things about it is the money really goes to where it's supposed to go. Unlike a lot of charities where the president makes $1 million and 100,000 goes to the charity. We have only 2 employees. They only got health care a couple of years ago. There's Jim right there, and there's Christina. Wonderful people. I can't say enough about them. There's a labor of love for them. We have great people on the boards. As you can see right here, Joe Casada, Brian Polito, Mark Wade, Howard Chaikin. I can go on, but like I said, we don't have an office. The office where Christina and Jim meet is the coffee shop around the corner, so we have no expenses for rent. The money needs to go to pay to these people who gave us so much enjoyment, so much, has added so much to our hobby. But they need they need food, they need housing. If you want to donate and you can't donate a lot of money, even if somebody donates $1, if everybody in our hobby donated $1, it would help these people out so much. But we run auctions, and all the creators in the hobby join in to help us. We just did a Zoom time. So 5 people actually paid to meet with me on Zoom. I couldn't believe it. I thought nobody was going to pay $100. I told Jim when he said there's 5 people, I said, which of my family members are they? But we had a blast.
Your daughter.
Yeah, but you know, it was Howard Chaikin and everybody, Brian Polito, like I mentioned, doing the Zoom thing. It worked out really well because everybody was home for the COVID, and it was great. But really, if you go to a convention, please look for the Hero Initiative booth or somebody with a Hero Initiative jar for donations. If I always I say the same thing all the time, that if I needed charity, I would probably take it. So then I really better give my time and money when I can. And don't tell Pam I give a lot of money. She gets upset. But I really believe that you should give if you are willing to take. And we have to be kind to each other on this planet, and especially the people who give us enjoyment.
Absolutely. And that's the thing that's always amazed me is, you know, you have these Hollywood stars charging hundreds and $200, $300 for their signature. And you've got these comic book artists that we love to sit down and read the books, asking for $5 and $10 a signature. And we quaff at that, but yeah, we'll spend $100 on the Hollywood person, and it blows my mind. So
or Neil Adams wants $50, right?
Yep.
Yep.
I mean, look, Neil is Neil, and people pay it.
Oh, yeah.
So it's great.
Yeah.
And Neil's a good friend, so I'm not trying to put him down. I'm just saying he charges more than other people.
Well, that's just like John Byrne refuses to let you get a book slabbed, right? So if you get
Yeah, and we respect that, though.
Yep.
That's the
Oh,
thing.
no. I
Yeah.
hate it, though, because I'd be fine if he wrote to Ryan on it just to know that I'm not reselling it so that I could have that slab. But that's where
Nobody
that
says that you can't send it for VSP, though.
exactly. That's what I was going to say, that VSP. Albert asked, will there be any more mail-in signing opportunities anytime soon? And then Daryl already answered and said, yes, stay tuned. I know that I had talked, and I've actually talked to Daryl about it. You know, whenever y'all partnered up with Beckett, in the sports industry, the signature really isn't a big thing for them. It's the card itself and the rarity of the cards and that type of stuff. So when y'all had your CBCS convention earlier this year and had Donnie Cates there.
Oh, the expo, right?
The expo, yes. I think that kind of opened their eyes to see in the comic industry those signatures are very important. And I know that y'all been working quite a bit to get more and more artists to try to offer up signatures and events and stuff like that.
Sure, we just did a massive signing, mail-in signing for Frank Miller, Snyder, Capullo. I forgot all the other artists. There was so many. We got flooded with submissions.
I'm assuming that was partnered up with, and not to drop names, but Doug Peters over at Comic Sketch Art.
Yeah, I think for some of the artists, absolutely. Yeah. Doug Peters helps, a lot of the creators facilitate signings, and he's a very nice guy, but we have another round of signings coming up. We're lining up our guest list. I don't want to announce anything until we make the big announcement, because once in a while creators drop out until it's confirmed. I don't want to lie to anybody or give misinformation.
Or you could end up like us, where Daryl and I had actually worked out the deal to have like Inhook and Matina and Alan Quah and Cale Noog at Fan Expo in Dallas, and then Fan Expo didn't happen. Now it's supposed to happen in June, but we'll see if that actually happens or not. So.
That's not going to happen. We're not going to see conventions, I don't think, until winter.
Yeah.
And of course, winter's the slowest time in our business, December and January. People are dealing with the holidays, and January paying off the credit cards for the holidays. And there's really no major conventions. I really hope the conventions come back. It's really hurt a lot of dealers and sellers, and it's also been a bummer for the collectors who love going to shows.
Well,
I'm scheduled to be a guest at Little Giant in New Hampshire, which is a great show, fantastic. The gentleman who runs it is such a comic book fanatic. And I don't know if I'm going to travel in August. I'm not so much worried about my health, but like I said, I don't want to pass anything along to somebody else.
Right. And they need you back at the shop grading, so you can't be out for 14 days not grading. So.
Right.
So, one thing I did want to mention for those that are watching, we did talk with Steve, and he did set us up with a 15% off promo. That's on the screen down there. So it's the Coffee Time 15% off promo. So when you're submitting your books, you can use that to get 15% off the grading part only. So VSP doesn't count. Shipping that doesn't apply, that type of stuff. It's just to the grading part of the slab itself. So
right,
you're using that promo, and that's good till the end of this month, correct?
Right, it needs to be postmarked before the end of the month. If it gets there on June 4th, but it's postmarked on the 31st, I think there's 31 days in this month.
Yes, you're right.
Sorry, it's all fine, but. And the price will be adjusted when it hits receiving.
So I do have a question. This is me personally, and it's not a huge thing, Steve, but maybe it's something you can look into. When I go in and submit comics digitally, so using the website, I go in and I submit comics. When I'm done, it creates an invoice. Is there a way for me to then just pull up that invoice and print it? Or obviously right now there's not. I have to click the invoice, which downloads the PDF to my computer, and then I have to pull that back up wherever it downloaded and print that invoice out before I can bring it up there to drop off. I would love for y'all to figure out a way for when I click it, it just opens up the PDF and lets me print it right then and there.
Actually, send me an email about that. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I don't have much to do with receiving. I'm
I know
sorry.
you don't.
That's why Kendra gets mad at me sometimes.
Right, but I think it's a great idea. I want to make it as simple as possible for everybody to submit books.
Right.
It shouldn't be a chore.
Right. And well, unfortunately for Chris, he can never find where it downloaded to, so he calls
I have
me.
no idea where it goes. So I have to call Ryan, and then he goes, just go drop them off, and then I'll drop them off. The invoice is in the system, and I'll see Kendra or whoever, and she's like, "We're good. We've got the invoice." I'm like, "Okay."
Right. Yeah. I mean, the minute you come to the office, we'll always take care of you.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But most people can't. Most people just can't come into the office because the location. But yeah, this. If you please remind me. I've had a long day, and I'll probably forget. But an email would be great, and I will pass it along because I'm always looking for better ways to make our business better.
All right, those watching, you heard him right there. If you got ways to make the business better, post them now. I'll email them to him. So
yeah, I got a quick question. I know we're just hitting the hour mark here. I got a quick question on.
I'm here for as long as you guys need me.
Okay.
All right. Well, all right. 1 a.m. I guess everybody. Comic pressing on pressing books. Has that moved to in-house yet in Dallas, or is that still the books are still going to be sent out to Florida?
No, actually, we've actually moved it, and the move is complete. I was really unhappy with the way things were going, even thinking about shutting it down because they were at a 6-month turnaround time, which to me is unacceptable, completely unacceptable. I mean, 2 months, yeah, it takes a while to press books correctly. Steve Ricketts, who runs our pressing, is fantastic. I see such bad press books coming through our table with pebbling on the back or warping or color lift. It's a shame. So we had to move it or close it. So we moved it, and we're moving the turnaround times down daily right now. We have a great crew. And like I said, Steve Ricketts works magic on books. I wish I should have sent you guys some examples. But I don't think that if you're in a rush for your book to send it in right now, we'll probably be doing a big PR move once we're at acceptable levels. To me, right now, it's not acceptable.
Okay.
Well, I know my Ghost Rider 100 G-Home variant was pressed by you guys. And yeah, it took a while to get that one back, but it came back 9.8, so I'm good.
Oh, good.
Yep. So did Steve move then here to Texas?
Yes, he did. And he's really happy here, him and his wife. And I get to see him every day. He's a great friend of mine. So it's wonderful for me, not just for business, but as, a hobbyist and a friend. Because Steve loves comic books, boy. Oof.
He hasn't experienced August yet, though.
His license plate is Hulk 181.
Oh, there you go. So if I ever see that driving down the street, I'll know that's him. So
yeah, if it's a Texas plate.
All right. Let's see. Any more questions I missed? I think we're good there. Chris?
I'm good. I had my main two. All right. I got one more. Simple. Out of the millions of books that have come across, what is the most rare book that you have seen come across your desk or through Heritage or the competitor?
Wow. Rare is a strange word. It is, yeah. 1950s esoteric book that nobody cared about. The print run was small, and all of a sudden you see it in high grade for the first time ever. What was really cool is at CBCS, within I think a year's time, we saw 2 copies of Suspense 3, and both were not known to the people who submitted them that they were pedigrees. But West and I knew, and these were unknown. And it has the most amazing Alex Schomburg cover. It's torture, Nazis, bondage. It's just everything you want from an Alex Schomburg cover. But when I got my first copy, which was really low grade because you could only find it in low grade back in the day, I sat down and read it. Worst comic book ever. Greatest comic cover, but worst. But it was incredible to see these two super high grade copies. And when I say high grade, I think they were like 9.0 and 9.2. And for Golden Age, that's unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
To have lasted that long, especially after being taken out of the Headed collection and gone for many, many, many years to stay in that kind of shape. And of course, the submitters were very happy to find out it was not only high grade, but that they were from well-known pedigrees. And they sold, I think, there you go. What a cover. But I think they sold for about $250,000 a piece. And it's not a superhero book. It's not a number one. It's just a highly sought after book, especially after the Gerber guides came out. If nobody owns the Golden Age Gerber guides, they're called photojournals. Ernie Gerber went around and photographed the best copies he could find of every Golden Age book. You can get them, I think, for about $50 for the set, up to $100, depending on who you buy it from. I've worn out 2 sets already going through them, but it changed comics. People didn't know Suspense 3 was even out there. And when they saw that cover, they were like, I have to have that book. It changed comic collecting for the better. Yeah, there you go.
This is what
you
I
guys
do.
Are good. Yeah.
This is why
but
Chris
I can't recommend these books enough to every hobbyist.
And it's great. I love that Chris asked the question the way he did because he used the word rare, right? And when people say that, they instantly expect you to say first appearance of Superman,
like, Action Comics 1 or whatever, Amazing Fantasy 15.
I've seen more copies of Action 1 than I have Suspense 3.
Right. So I loved your answer, and I think that was a good question, Chris. So.
Yeah, I appreciate the answer. That was
but I don't care.
That was just rare. On my mind because I'm like, knowing that you've been at Heritage and knowing all the books that come through there that you guys have put up on auction, and then everything that's come across your desk, I'm like, what is the rarest looking book? I wonder that he has seen. Right. And I'm glad you didn't say Action Comics 1 because I mean that's a grail that everybody would love to own.
Well, it's a pat answer. I've actually owned 2 copies of Action 1 in my life. But it's a great book. Believe me, I'm not poo-pooing it at all. This started the superhero craze, right? I mean, and Superman's around today. Think about the longevity. What's really cool about our hobby too is it's unlike sports cards where you can only go back a little bit to the first card that player has. If somebody picks up, let's say, a young kid picks up their first Captain America comic book today, they can go all the way back to 1940 and, collect and see the not just the history, but the metamorphosis of what Captain America was like back then and what Captain America is like today, or Superman, or whoever. Wonder Woman is one of my favorite characters, so I started collecting. I owned a Sensation 1 and a Wonder Woman 1 back in the day. I had a great run of Wonder Womans, and it was fun. But it was because as a kid, I saw those really cool Jeff Jones, 199 Wonder Woman cover, the bondage cover. And I was able to go back and check out the history, and I found out, about the creators and how, it was what else they were into besides Wonder Woman, and the reason the magic lasso was truth-telling thing is because he invented the lie detector. Yeah, so it's just fascinating. Everything fascinates me about this hobby.
And it's funny that you mentioned that, because here in this day and age, like I'm not a huge fan of it, but I'm starting to get into it. So I read the new X-Men series that Hickman did, right, with House of X and Powers of 10.
He's a great writer, yeah.
Yeah, and it got me, and I've always loved X-Men, don't get me wrong. I mean, as a kid, I used to watch the X-Men cartoon, right? So, but it ignited that passion in me again. So now I'm going back and collecting the Claremont and the John Byrne books that they did back in the day, and adding those X-Men collection. So,
yeah, when I was a kid at camp, my mother had Mr. Fisher at the 5 and 10 hold my comic books, and every 2 weeks she would ship them to me. And I got Giant Size X-Men 1 in the mail that summer. I read it to death. I couldn't believe how cool it was. And then, of course, after that was X-Men 94, and then Byrne came on and really brought even more life to these characters with Claremont.
Yes.
Wonderful pieces of history from our hobby. I still call them moderns, but this 1975.
Right. Well, to each his own as far as the time, because for me, those predate me, so they're not modern for me.
Yeah, I posted I think an Avengers comic, the one with the Frankenstein on it. And I said, "See, I don't only post vintage." And somebody said to me, replied, "Hey, that is a vintage comic." Because to me, the 1940s, 1950s, and 60s are vintage. But I forget that I'm old, and other collectors are not.
Right. But that's the great thing about this hobby, right? Is tomorrow some brand new collector some kid is gonna pick it up and start enjoying it just as much as you did back in the day. So
absolutely, that's why at Halloween I used to give out comic books. Made sure they were kid friendly, of course.
Right.
But I had kids come to the door 3 or 4 times, the same kid. They'd come back an hour later, and I'd be like, "Yeah, I recognize you, but that's cool," because I was happy to give it out.
Right. Albert did ask, so is CBCS Expo going to become an annual event?
We hope so. It needs to be special. Without the right creators and without the right guests, I don't want to put on something that's middle of the road where people have to pay for their own flight. We had people come from out of the country. We want to make sure that whatever they paid for, they really got everything they wanted out of it, from learning grading techniques from Wes and I to dealing with, like you said earlier, Donnie Cates and Sam De La Rosa. So I don't know if it's going to be annual. I mean, if we could get one together in 6 months, we might do it. But we also want to give people enough time to get their travel plans together, get the money together to do it. But it was a fantastic time. Everybody had a great time, including myself. I learned stuff from Sam and from Donnie that I didn't know. I was able to speak about the history of the hobby with Buddy Saunders from mycomicshop.com. It was just a great time, and everybody had just we all went out afterwards. Even when it was over, we all went to the bar at the hotel and hung out for a while, talking till late in the night. It's fantastic. So we hope to do another one this year.
Yeah, and I don't think it's going to happen now because of everything that happened. But I know Kendra and I had been talking, and she was going to pitch the idea of possibly bringing James Tiernan and Martina in together, since they're working on the Batman right now, and Punchline's so popular and everything. So I know there was talks, but obviously with everything going on now,
right. I can't see anything happening until after the winter.
Yep. So.
I mean, hopefully all this is over. We'll find a vaccine. People will be careful enough, right, at this point in time to social distance and take care of each other. But it's a really uncertain time in it's unprecedented in my lifetime.
And you're older than me. So.
Yeah, I'll be 57 in June.
Yeah.
I'm getting older. I used to be called the kid by everybody, and now nobody calls me the kid.
Now you're the master.
I doubt it, but that's very nice of you. I'm
So-
just a hobbyist, man.
Oh, I was saying master in the sense of Star Wars, master in Padawan. So I'm a huge Star Wars nerd. So
Oh, I love Star Wars.
nice. Okay, so you said that. I got to ask, did you watch the new Clone Wars, the new season that came out?
Not yet. No, I have not had time. I actually put the TV on these days to let my mind stop about 11 o'clock at night, and I fall asleep during series, and Netflix and Amazon keep running, so you
Yep.
don't know where you fell asleep. So it could have been episode 2, and it stopped at episode 5, and I have to
Right.
go back and find it. But I really just use it as a sleep aid at this point. I'd rather read comic books for my enjoyment, but I love movies. I mean, I saw Jojo Rabbit, was phenomenal. The Good Liar with Ian McKellen, Magneto, and
Yep.
Helen Mirren was amazing. And I tried to watch Ozark, but once again, I was really enjoying it, but I have no clue where I was when it left off.
See, Chris loves Ozark. I tried. I made it to like episode 8 of season 1, and I was like, I can't do it. And Chris was like, Nope, no, you got to watch it. So I finished season 1 and started season 2, and it didn't do it for me. So I
Didn't
finally
do it for him, but man, I know so many people that love that, and now I'm telling him to watch Outer Banks is one on Netflix. That's awesome. That
Oh
just
yeah,
came out.
what's it about?
It's about a kid that loses his dad at sea, who was on a treasure hunt. So this kid and 4 of his, they're all like 16 years old, based in North Carolina. So they're kind of going out on this treasure hunt to also find his father and trying to figure out the mystery of what happened to him. But it's kind of, what's really good about it is on the island there is kind of like, you remember the movie The Outsiders, the old movie The Outsiders that had the Socias and the Greasers?
Yeah, well, no, I grew up on that book.
Well, there you go. Okay, yeah. So
in 7th grade.
it's kind of the
And I
same
loved
thing.
it. Pony Boy,
Yeah, so it's kind of the same thing, but it's the poor side of the island and the rich side of the island, where the poor side's the middle class, have to work. They're the fishermen, and I don't know. It just kind of keeps you on the edge of your seat. Not a lot of action in it. It's just really good. It was written really well. 10 episodes. We binge watched 7 hours one night, and then the next day we finished up the other 3, and we're done. And like, okay, now what do we do?
I'm going to watch it tonight. So it's on Netflix, you said?
It's on Netflix. It's called Outer Banks, and it's about a treasure hunt too. So if you like National Treasure and all that, you're gonna like it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to anything that sounds great.
Yeah, it's getting a lot of good reviews. It's moving up the Netflix list really quick.
Cool. I'm definitely checking that out tonight.
Well, I'm gonna, I think, ask the final question here, and then we'll let you go watch that. So,
yeah,
if you could sit down and make a wish list, and this is the one thing that you absolutely want to see happen at CBCS, what would it be?
Wow. Wow. There's a lot of things I want, believe it or not. And like I said, there's a lot in the works. We've had incredible meetings this week with new programs, new incentives, things like that. I think that I'd like to bring in more hobbyists into the fold and just interact with them as much as I can, and have our people like Wes Steffen and Daryl and everybody and Kendra interact with our hobbyists, and just make sure we stay a good force in the hobby. I think that is my ultimate goal, and it's happening, but I'd like to see it happen on a larger scale. To me, that would be fantastic. It's a fantastic community we have. I mean, there's always 1 or 2 people that you can't get along with, but that's life, right? But I mean, almost everybody I meet that has the same love for comics, and as long as you do, you find common ground, and it's a global community. I'm a bit of a hippie. I think we should all get along and all take care of each other. And so if we can enjoy the same stuff and have a great time, that's what life's about. We're supposed to enjoy our life. And there's a lot of downfalls. So the good times really count, and the good relationships. I've had friends in this hobby now for 35 years, and man, I'm friends with Bob Overstreet. I can't believe that. This guy is a god in our hobby, and the creators that I meet, I'm great friends with Stuart Sager, Billy Tucci. We talk on the phone. I can't believe it. I mean, when I look in my phone and I see my contacts, I'm like, wow, Sam De La Rosa's in my contacts. And it's just, I really believe that the hobby can be a better place, and I really want to help be part of making it that.
Right. It's funny you say that about Sam. He actually, I don't know if you're aware, but we're his local comic shop. So he comes and shops with us. And
Lives 5 minutes away.
yeah, when he buys stuff, he signs his signature as Venom rather than his actual signature. It's great.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah. So,
But he's not the sweetest guy in the world.
Oh, he is. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Chris, what was it the other day? You said he came in, picked up a blank, walked behind the counter and said, give me a marker, knocked out a commission and goes, here, sell this for the store, make some money.
Yeah, he said, here, put this on the wall, sell it in the store, make some money for the store. He does that all the time. He'll come in, he hangs out. It's great because there's a lot of new customers that'll come to the store. They don't know who he is personally. They haven't met him. And he may be in the store looking at dollar books or something, or he's looking at Spider-Man and Venom on the wall. And there'll be somebody come up, they just start talking about Venom. I'm like, oh, you're a big Venom fan. Yeah, I'm a big Venom fan. I'm like, oh, okay, well, what's some of your favorites? And they're like, oh, I love the Lethal Protector run, and I do all that. I'm like, really? Well, okay, do you remember who drew on those covers or did any of the inking on it? He's like, no. I'm like, you remember a guy named Sam De La Rosa? And they're like, yeah, I remember that name. And we'll point at the books that he worked on. They're like, man, yeah, I've got to own that book, they start talking. And I'm like, well, would you like to meet him sometime? He comes in here all the time. And then when I'm doing that, Sam starts inching his way up, and he stands right next to the guy. And the look on their faces when he introduces himself is priceless. There's been a time to where Sam sat there and talked to some guy for about 20 minutes about a Venom book. The guy had no clue who he was. And then they brought up Sam De La Rosa in the conversation. The guy's like, I've always wanted to meet him. I've never, I know his work. I've never seen him. And Sam's in the store, and he comes in. He always wears a beanie, right? Sweats sometimes. Yeah. He's just being casual. Yeah. His daughters go I guess they go to school right across the street. So he'll come in before he picks them up. And it was some of the greatest things. And then all of a sudden, the guy, Sam will stick out his hand. He goes, hi, I'm Sam. And the look on the guy's face, I thought he was going to faint. Oh, it must be crazy. He was the biggest Sam. Yeah, and so Sam's, he's sitting there signing the guy's books for free. He signed it, did a remark on it, didn't charge him anything, just because the guy was a huge fan, and got a picture with him, and that made that guy's day.
Absolutely, and that's what's great about this hobby, right? Yeah. I mean, Sam, when he did the CBCS Expo, I went to thank him. Before I could thank him, gave me a big hug and said, I'll come back anytime. He was just so happy and such a nice guy, and he's so low key. There's no ego involved. It's fantastic. He just, loves the medium.
Yeah.
And he loves the collectors and the readers. He really does. And if more people could be like Sam, we'd have unbelievable hobby.
True.
Well, I put you in that same category after talking to you.
Yeah. So that's very humbling, but I'm not Sam De La Rosa.
No, but I'm saying as far as your attitude towards the hobby. So.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Well, I think we're going to get out. Steve, thank you once again so much for coming on. We really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you so much. I mean, I had a great time, and I hope that your audience did, and I hope you guys had a great time. And if you ever need me back, just pick up the phone.
Will do. I'm sure I'll let you out at the shop every now and then. I'll make sure to say hi this time.
Yeah, let's make sure that we give the promo code out to people who might have missed it.
Yep, let's put that back up real quick. We got the Coffee Time 15% promo. So again, for those that missed it, you can get 15% off any of your submissions. It does not include shipping or VSP or anything like that, but for the slabbing process itself, 15% off. You use that promo code, and you have to have that postmarked by May 31st. In order to get that promotion. So make sure y'all are using that. And this will be posted on YouTube tomorrow. So if you missed it, and you're watching now on YouTube, that promo code still works until May 31st. To 2020. So if it's now 2021 May, it doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, all right, I think we're going to get out of here. We'll close it out again, showing the Heroes Initiative video. Reminder for those that are watching, feel free to go over there and donate. Like Steve said, just even if it's just $1, every dollar helps, and it helps support the people that that this industry has been built upon. So, Steve, anything you want to say before we close out?
Well, I just want to thank the audience, of course, for putting up with me. And I want to thank you guys for having me on. And I hope everybody stays safe out there. And I hope to meet a lot of you at the conventions once they start up again. And if there's any questions, please, write to CBCS customer service, and we'll try to answer whatever we can for you. And I just want everybody to have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful night.
All right.
All right. We appreciate it, Steve.
Enjoy your day and enjoy coffee time with Pastime Comics and Collectibles.